English is Made Easy with Belinda. Today we'll be learning about the pronunciation of the past tense. One of my favourite lessons to teach. Here in Spain, this is a really big problem. So today I'm going to go through this with you. Now, before I teach this lesson, I tell a little story. And it's about a guy called Edward, or we prefer to call him Ed. Okay, now Ed is really popular here in Spain. In fact, all the people in Spain love Ed. And what do I mean by that? Well, I hear him mentioned all the time, every day. Walk Ed, call Ed, need Ed. Now the problem is, us English speakers, we don't like Ed. Sorry, Ed. In fact, Ed doesn't exist in the English language. So if that's true, how do we pronounce the past tense? Well, I'm going to explain it to you today. Now the lesson for me to teach you is very easy. I'm going to teach you in 2 steps with 2 rules. But the practice is the difficult thing. For me, it's a bit like going to the gym. It's very easy to go to the gym and learn how to use the machines. But unless you keep going and make an effort, you don't get results. You don't get that amazing body. And the pronunciation of the past tense is a bit like that. We need to learn the rules and then we need to practice. So after the lesson, I'm going to give you some practice. Alright, let's begin. Okay, rule number 1. Any word that ends in T or D, or the sound ends in T or D, the past tense sound becomes id. So we look at want, for example. I add the past tense and the sound becomes wanted. Need. We add the past tense and the sound becomes needed. Now when I said before, it's the sound that's important. So any word that ends, or any word where the sound ends in T or D, for example, let's look at note. Note ends in the letter E, but the sound is T, note. So we're going to add the D to create the past tense, and the sound becomes noted. Alright, that's rule number 1. Nice and easy. Okay, now let's have a look at rule number 2. All the other words that are regular verbs, when we create the past tense, the sound becomes T. Now this is really difficult for a lot of people, and the practice to make this perfect is difficult and it takes time. Remember going to the gym. Alright, so let's have a look. Let's look at like, for example. We're going to add the D to make the past tense. But now the sound doesn't become like it. We have no extra syllable in rule number 2. In rule number 1, yes. Rule number 2 is 1 syllable for the past tense. So like becomes liked. Kiss, we add the past tense, becomes kissed. Love, we add the past tense, becomes loved. Laugh, a strange word, but the sound is F, laugh. We add the past tense, becomes laughed. Alright, so that is essentially it. We have rule number 1, we add the past tense, we have a second syllable, and the sound becomes id, wanted. In our rule number 2, we add the past tense and the sound becomes t, liked, kissed, used. Alright, so that is it. Sounds very easy. But now we're going to look at the practice. So how do my students usually feel when I give them this lesson? Well, we go through and we read the text I'm going to give you. After they read the text the first time, this is how they usually feel. Not really. This is how they really feel. You see, the pronunciation of the past tense is difficult to correct because for many of us, we've been saying it wrong ever since we've been learning English. So it looks like we have a mountain to climb to an ed-free world. But it's possible. So what we do is we read the text again. And in this moment, maybe there's a slight improvement, a little improvement. But if we have time, we read it again. But this isn't going to be fixed in one lesson with me. But what happens is if you keep practicing your past tense, then what happens is one day you say the past tense incorrectly. But in this moment, you hear the mistake. And in that moment, you correct the mistake. And when you correct that mistake, that's when your journey to an ed-free world has really begun. So, like we say, practice makes perfect. Good luck with your pronunciation of the past tense. Say goodbye to Ed, and until next time, be learning. You have 2 practice scripts to use. First, I will read the script slowly and clearly. Then I'll read it like I would normally. Remember, read the script slowly. I've had many years to perfect this. Time and practice. Remember the gym. If you print this out, my students often change the past tense to the correct pronunciation form while practicing. This is a good idea in the beginning. Good luck. Yesterday, I wanted to wear my favorite top, but it needed to be washed. I looked everywhere for it, but I couldn't find it. At last, I found it and was amazed that it was under my bed and not damaged. I washed it and inspected it after, and it was perfect. I have loved that top since the day I bought it. I breathed a sigh of relief when I put it on and it looked great. Yesterday I wanted to wear my favourite top, but it needed to be washed. I looked everywhere for it, but I couldn't find it. At last I found it and was amazed that it was under my bed and not damaged. I washed it and inspected it after, and it was perfect. I've loved that top since the day I bought it. I breathed a sigh of relief when I put it on and it looked great. Last week I went to a party and danced all night. I have loved dancing since I was a small child. I used to dance with my father. He helped me with my lessons, and also one day when I broke my shoe, he fixed it for me. I was amazed at how clever he was. My father called me his favourite ballerina. When I finished my dance and had washed my hands and face and cleaned my teeth, I would go to bed and my father kissed me goodnight every night. Last week I went to a party and danced all night. I've loved dancing since I was a small child. I used to dance with my father. He helped me with my lessons, and one day when I broke my shoe, he fixed it for me. I was amazed at how clever he was. My father called me his favourite ballerina. When I finished my dance and had washed my hands and face and cleaned my teeth, I would go to bed and my father kissed me good night every night.